First, I want to apologize to a couple of you who thought I was here to pour you water or serve you lunch. I'm not here to serve you food. I'm here to serve you food for thought. Also, backstage behind the banquet room, the catering manager let me use a cart here, and one of the workers was like, "What are you doing back here?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting one of the carts." She said, "Oh, that's not how the cloth goes on top. Let me help you." I'm like, "Okay, thank you." So I want to apologize to her too if I scared her back there. Growing up, we had this thing in school called show and tell, where we had to bring something to school that represents who we are and show the school how cool it is, and everyone's like, "Oh, wow, that's nice. You have your lucky hat or your favorite pen or something you got from a trip." So I thought at home, I'm like, "Oh man, it's my week to go for show and tell. 5th grade, what am I gonna do for my peers? What can I bring in class that represents who I am?" So I asked my mom and my dad, I said, "Hey, can I cook for my class, Mom, Dad?" They said, "Sure." So I packed my mom's frying pan, spatula, mayonnaise, ketchup, steakums, cheese, salt and pepper, and my dad drove me to the school and he dropped me off and had all this cooking equipment in my class. Until this day, a good friend of mine, Brent Evans, who's an elementary teacher, he reminds me like, "Man, in 5th grade, you made cheesesteaks and fries. They was banging too." I was like, "Wow, yeah, I did do that. I forgot, 34 now, yeah." So I'm saying that to say who I am today. Working in food and education as a culinary arts teacher, I found that there's a strong connection between food and education. I always didn't look at it like that because when I went to college, majored in hospitality and tourism management, my goal was to, you know what, I want to work on a cruise ship, I want to cook for people, I want to serve them. That's what I want to do when I got to college. Teaching fell in my lap, and I started working with students, and I'm teaching them culinary and hospitality, and I see that they're struggling. They're struggling with not just cooking, because they all have their top chefs at home, their mom and dad who taught them how to cook, and they come to my class like, "Wow, that's not how my mom and dad taught me, but look, this is how I'm going to teach you and listen to me, not them. You don't cover food halfway with foil and put it in the fridge. That's not right. We don't do that. That's not safe." We often tell our students to think outside the box, which is very important to understand the concepts of different things and how they connect and to further your thought. But before we do that, we need to show them and reiterate why it's important to think inside the box. There are so many common things, such as how many teaspoons equal a tablespoon, how many tablespoons equal a cup, how many cups are in a pint, how many pints are in a quart, quarts in a gallon. Those things you need to know about what's inside the box before you can think about outside the box, furthering conversions and tripling and doubling recipes and cutting recipes in half. It's a lot, I know, right? Fermentation, food and science. First of all, fermentation is a chemical process that takes place when it turns a substance into energy. When you're eating a yeast roll, you're actually taking part in a science lesson. How did that yeast roll get that size? How did it get fluffy and big? We all have bread at home, I'm sure. That's science right there. I had a student who came to me in class. She said, "Mr. Hudson, look at my cookies on the tray." The whole tray was, all you saw was a brown mass. I'm like, what's going on? Let me see what's going on. She said, they're all stuck together, Mr. Hudson. I said, "Hey, did you put all the ingredients in the pan, in the bowl?" "Yeah, I did." "No, you didn't. You're missing something. You didn't use baking powder. They're not going to rise without baking powder. This is the leavening agent. This causes things to rise. So before you mix the butter and the brown sugar, the flour and baking powder must become best friends first." I try to use that as an analogy, metaphor. They have to marry together so the flour knows that, hey, there's someone here to help me rise when I'm in the oven. Got to use that next time. You understand me? Yeah, you got to be creative. If not, they're going to fall asleep in class. And most of them just want to eat all the time, and it's not about eat. I tell them, look, if you're here to eat, you're missing the whole lesson. Imagine going into a classroom of students and everyone's coming at 8 o'clock in the morning and they're halfway asleep and tired. I'm like, hey guys, we're on a field trip. Let's go, get your coats on. What, we're going on a field trip? No permission slip? Yes, we're on a field trip. We're getting ready to get on a bus. We're gonna go to a different country and learn a different ingredient. And they're like, oh, we're not going anywhere. I said, hey, traveling starts in your mind first. Food is social studies. Think about it. My mom used to eat ginger snaps all the time when I was a kid. Ginger snaps. She'd take some cheese out the fridge and put it between ginger snaps and she'd be chewing on them and munching. I'm like, man, my mom loves ginger snaps. That's old school. Being older now, I work with ginger all the time, and I tell my students, like, look, ginger wasn't always in the U.S. It came from a different country, Southeast Asia, parts of India. It was cultivated from there, originated there, and now it's all throughout the world. Cooking is geography, it's social studies. There's so many opportunities that we can use food and education as far as reteaching, not just reteaching, but most importantly, learning. Before you can reteach something, you have to learn it, and usually when you reteach it, that creates a reinforcement, reteaching. And throughout the summer, lots of students they forget things that they learned throughout the school year. So it's very important that we teach and we cause them to relearn things and reinforce things throughout the school year. Think about food. So I have some props here. This is soup. Okay, there's no soup in here, but it's just soup. So think about food. You can see food, you can smell it, you can hear it cooking, you can touch it and feel it, you can taste it. Like this food uses all your senses. What better way to connect than using food and education? Food and language arts. So I know y'all hungry right now for lunch, right? So here's the menu. Today's lunch menu, we're gonna have some fried chicken, lasagna, or spaghetti, banana pudding, papaya salad, excuse me, and we're gonna have some flour tortillas. Language arts, vocabulary, homophones, words that sound alike but are spelled differently, there. Those things happen every day, and especially in food and recipes and cooking, you have students have a spelling test, and these culinary words are foreign to them. They're foreign because they never heard them before, and they get into my culinary class, and they're like, wow, that's how you spell spaghetti? Yeah, the G is silent. Sorry, lasagna, the G is silent. Banana, all these words that they've never seen before, it's an introduction to a new vocabulary. Takes them from here to here, and it connects them to, man, you know what? When I get up in the morning, I'm gonna go to culinary class, and Mr. Hudson's gonna show me some new things because we're connecting. That's what it's all about. Education is possible through connections. We have to connect our kids to that seat in the morning. It's just not about plus and minuses, but what's the content behind it? Food and education rules the world. Food and math. I had a young man in class, he's a junior. I said, hey, we need to double that recipe for those cookies. We got more orders. Recipe calls for 1.5 cups of brown sugar. He took the measuring cup and he said, what's 1.5? He was just holding it in his hand. I said, don't you double the recipe? It needs more brown sugar. Double it. 1.5 cups. I said, tell me what it is, young man. He struggled. I said, double the recipe. 1.5 cups. Your mother asked you to go to the grocery store, you and your cousin, she gives you $3 and says, hey, you guys split this evenly between you two. How much money can each of you spend? He said, $1.25. I said, look, everybody go in the classroom right now. Look at the whiteboard. I drew some pizza slices. I drew some hamburgers and cut them in half. It was my goal as a teacher to show him how food connected to math. It's every day. It's in this cookie right here. It has a diameter, radius, which leads to a circumference. I was thinking last night as I was sleeping, how many kids go to McDonald's and get French fries? What if they got a small fry, a medium fry, a large fry, had to count all the fries, and then differentiate the difference between the amounts of French fries, proportion, and then use that to calculate the price and see if the price range fits the order? Just food for thought. I didn't write that. That was good, right? I know. We're behind. We're behind. We're behind as a country, United States of America. We rank according to the performance of the Program for International Studies Assessment. We're ranked 24th in reading out of 72 countries, and we're ranked 40th in math out of 72 countries. So every opportunity that we get to teach our kids something and to reinforce something, let's take that serious. 2014, I decided, how can I help not people just inside the classroom, but outside the classroom with this food and education idea and this thing. It's been around for a long time, home economics. Speaking of home economics and culinary, February is actually, in the United States, it's National Career and Technical Exploration Month. So let's give a round of applause for all teachers who teach a CTE class, for all their hard work and dedication. I decided I was going to go around in Delaware, which is a state on the East Coast, right below Philadelphia. I was told to say that. Y'all laughing. So. I decided to go around and go to churches, daycare centers, after-school programs, in people's homes, summer programs, and do this thing called Spatulearn, which is showing a young man or a young woman or a group of them how cooking and academics relate together in a 60-minute session. And we will cook, taste it, analyze it, then ask questions like how, why, what took place, what vocabulary words are associated, what's the difference between small dice and mincing, how could you do something differently? What if we use brown sugar? What if we use white sugar? What if we didn't use flour? What would happen? And in 2014, I was notified by the National Restaurant Association that I was going to be the Educator of Excellence for Delaware. They flew me out to Chicago. I got to go on a food tour and taste different teas and spices and all kinds of craziness. I'm a little kid from a trailer park in Concord, Delaware, Seaford. I'm here in Chicago with other national award winners from every state, and we're talking about problems that we have in our classroom. That was a great opportunity, and I'm very appreciative of that. Speaking of opportunity, you have the opportunity each and every day before you eat or before you drink something to share with the younger person how that connects to education. Our earlier speaker, Michael Phillips, talked about broken chairs. I deal with broken recipes. And from that, we have to teach our students every day and learn and move forward. Thank you so much for your time.